Everyone is talking about the rise of interest rates. The Bank of England just last week announced it has now gone up to 4.25%. If you are an Airbnb service provider here in the UK, how are you feeling? Do you understand how this actually correlates to you? We are going to be unpacking this in this video. Okay, so let's talk about this. Let's talk about this interest rate going up to 4.25. What does it actually mean to you if you're an Airbnb service provider? Well, first of all, let's talk about the two different ways. If you're someone who does Airbnb, well, actually, there's three different ways that you can do this in the UK right now. Number one, you can buy property, so you own the property and then you turn them into an Airbnb. Number two, you can do this very popularly known in the UK property industry as something called rent to rent. So that means you rent the property from a landlord and then you use the property for short-term rental as an Airbnb. Or number three, you do what I do, which is you manage the properties for the landlords and investors as an Airbnb. So these are the three different ways in which you can do this. So now, who does this interest rate thing affect the most? Well, if you're buying property and you're using it as an Airbnb, then actually this doesn't really affect you that much because you are already maximizing on that property. You're already getting the most money you can get from a property as long as that property is in a location that is viable for Airbnb. So that doesn't really affect you that much. It might affect you a little bit because you know what, probably, what you're paying for a mortgage has gone up, but actually it's not affecting you as much as it's affecting traditional landlords who, because what they're paying for the mortgage has now gone up, it actually doesn't make it a viable investment anymore. A lot of landlords are actually not having to, once they've collected the rent, they're having to dip into their own pockets to cover the difference so they can cover the mortgage. This is crazy. This is no longer an investment. This has now become a liability. And that's not why landlords got into it. So the buy-to-let model, which is just buying the property to rent it out right now with interest rate, the base rate actually are 4.25%, that's just not viable. So with Airbnb model, you can get an uplift in what you generate in that property. Typically, landlords and investors will get 2 to 3 times the return than they would from a traditional buy-to-let property. So if you're buying, you're good. If you're doing the rent-to-rent model, you are in trouble right now. This model doesn't work. This model doesn't make sense. And landlords are sick and tired of it. Why is that? Because you are not providing any value to the marketplace. Now, I know a lot of people are going to get offended by this. Don't cancel me. I'm just telling the truth, right? The reality is you're not providing any value. And it doesn't matter which way you want to cut it, that, we're guaranteeing the landlord the rent. No, you're not. Because the reality is that guarantee is not backed by any insurance. The tenant is guaranteeing the landlord the rent. They've got a tenancy agreement signed. There's no difference between what you're saying to the landlord, I'm guaranteeing you this rent, than the tenant that's got a tenancy agreement signed. That's also a guarantee to the landlord. Why is your guarantee any stronger? Well, it isn't, is it? So there you go. Then the second thing you guys talk about is there's going to be a void period. I give you that. Maybe there is a void period that, a traditional tenancy might bring. So that means a void period means essentially when, a tenant is moving out that property, there might be a week or 2 weeks where the new tenant hasn't moved in yet and the landlord is losing money. So if you're doing the rent to rent where you're guaranteeing the landlord this rent over a 3-year period of time, that means there isn't any void period within those 3 years. Okay, that's fine. But how much is that really? Is it really that much? But when we think about what is the real problem that landlords are facing in the marketplace right now, it's not the guaranteed rent, it's the fact that the rent isn't enough. They're not making enough money. So when you're offering them a rent to rent, just saying, I'm going to replace the tenant's rent with my rent, but then guess what, Mr. Landlord? I'm going to go away and I'm going to make all of this money from your property that you've invested in and you don't see a penny of it. Wow, what a great value exchange. What is in it for the landlord in that? So, and landlords are looking at this now thinking, this is madness. I'm not doing this. I'm also coming with all of this extra potential risk with this person, who's actually a business. Do I know how viable the business is? I'm not sure. Now, hey, look, I know the Airbnb market is buzzing. As long as you know what you're doing and you're analyzing the right locations, yes, you're going to make money. But the landlord is taking that extra risk because you're a company. You're a company. So What value are you really bringing to the marketplace when you're doing the rent-to-rent thing? And landlords are looking at it now thinking, well, you know what? We don't really want to do this because guess what? There's a lot of people who have come before you, who has promised the world, and they've ended up letting us down. They haven't paid their rent, and they've had to give the property back to us, which has put us in a void period before we found the next tenant to actually come into the property. And landlords don't want to do this anymore. And unfortunately, you guys are giving the industry a bad name. Airbnb is not the problem. The people who have been offering this rent-to-rent thing, not knowing how to do their numbers, giving the landlords false hope, and then not being able to fulfill and having to hand the properties back to the landlord are the ones causing the problems for those new people who are coming in. So how do we actually solve this problem? Which is the third option, management. Now, with the management model, you're saying to the landlord, hey, Mr. Landlord, do you need more money? Yes, I do. Well, hang on first. We need to analyze this area and make sure this area is actually viable. Make sure we can make money. And if we do, and it doesn't make money, unfortunately, we can't work with you because I'm not going to make money. You're not going to make money. No one's winning. But if it does, and typically when it does, you're going to generate 2 to 3 times the amount of profit than you would from a traditional property. And guess what? I'm going to do all the work for you. I'm going to manage it. I'm going to get guests in there. I'm going to furnish the property. If the cleaners need to come in, I'm going to manage that. I'm going to manage any maintenance issues. Everything I'm going to do for you. You just pay us a management fee like you would your traditional letting agent. Now, look, our management fee is going to be higher than a letting agent because we have to do a lot more work. But, Mr. Landlord, how would you like to make 2 to 3 times the profit? Oh, yes, I would. There you go. That is what you call a value exchange. No, I'm going to come in, give you the market rate, and I'm going to go make all these profits. What we're saying is we're going to come in, we are going to manage the property so you can generate this profit. And then from that, we're going to take, our cut. We're going to take our fee for offering that service to you. So now you're actually going to get to see an uplift in your revenue. That's what you call a value exchange. And that's before we start talking about all of the legislative benefits, which for me, I find it really difficult to believe. All of these coaches, all these people doing this rent-to-rent thing, coaching people on rent-to-rent in the industry, I find it difficult that they don't actually know the legislative benefits of landlords using their properties as an Airbnb. Because there's a lot of tax breaks. But because you greedy people want to make more money, instead of telling the landlords this, you don't tell them that. So all the tax breaks that the landlord could actually benefit from, once they sign that rent-to-rent contract with you, they forfeit all of that. Now, that's not great. That's not how you do business. When you do business, you got to be clean. You got to be truthful. You got to have a value exchange. What are they getting and what are you getting? You've still got to eat. You've still got to make money. But the reality is, what are they getting? So, ladies and gentlemen, coming back to the point of 4.25 interest rate, how does that affect you if you're running an Airbnb business? Well, if you're doing management, it's an absolutely incredible value exchange because you are now providing a viable alternative to these landlords who are suffering, who are going, my interest rate just quadrupled. How am I going to make this? How am I going to make it make sense? Last year I was paying 1.25, 1.75. Now I'm paying 4%, 4.55%. How am I going to make this make sense? Well, if I'm also able to show you how you could, double or triple your revenue, all of a sudden it starts to make sense. And this is how we can capitalize on this trend right now. There's sometimes when an idea's time has just arrived, and the Airbnb management model, now is the time, because what we're able to do is to say, hey, you have got a problem, I understand the pain, and I am here to help you solve that pain. So look, if you want to understand a bit more about this model and the way that it works, just drop me a message. Drop a like on this video, drop a comment, share this video as well, because the reality is now's the time to do this model. I also coach people doing this stuff. And the reason why my students are becoming so successful, I've got students who have been with all of these other rent-to-rent training companies for 8 months, a year. Some have had no deals, some have had 1 or 2 deals, and in just a space of 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, they're already securing deals. Some of them have already secured 2 deals in 4 to 5 weeks, as opposed to a year of getting no deals or a year of getting 1 or 2 deals. So even if you're looking at it from an economical standpoint, thinking, oh, well, I'm going to make more money doing rent to rent because I'm taking all the landlord's profits. Well, actually, if you're only doing 1 or 2 deals in a year and someone doing management is doing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 deals in that same period of time, who's making more money? You do the maths. If you want to learn more about this, drop a like, drop a comment, follow me on my social media, Ibrahim Brahma Wealth, and we can show you how you can capitalize on this phenomenal trend that's going on in the industry right now. And I will see you all on the next video.